So it's been more than a month, I think, since I've last uploaded a video or recorded anything for my channel. But like I promised, I'm going to talk about music, or the music that I like, in other words. Um, one of the band, or two of the bands I just recently got their new albums. Um, one of them being As Blood Runs Black, and the other one being Rise Against. Now they're completely different sounds. As Blood Runs Black is more grindcore, that whole sound, metalcore, stuff like that. And from their debut album to this album, it took them roughly about 5 years for them to come out with this record. And Rise Against, it's been roughly about 2 to 3 years since they came out with Appeal to Reason. I think is what their last album was. Let me make sure. Yeah, Appeal to Reason was their last album, was Rise Against last album. Their new one is called Endgame. Now, some people who are fans of thrash metal and stuff like that will say that it's a complete ripoff, title ripoff of Megadeth's Endgame. Um, I disagree because they could lean it in two completely different ways. Um, but then I can see how this, well, there are the similarities in the actual title. They both are called Endgame. But they're two completely different bands and two completely different sounds. Starting with this Blood Runs Black album. I don't have a hard copy of it. I downloaded it, um, legit and everything. One of the things about it that bothered me is that fans of this band have been anticipating and waiting and wanting them to release their sophomore album. And when they finally do, it it didn't really impress me because we had to wait 5 years, 5 to 6 years. Um, the last album came out in '06. Yeah, that's about 5 years. That's 5 years of waiting for a sophomore album. Most bands usually don't take that long to come out with a sophomore album. Most of the time, if you've been waiting for that long, you automatically think that that band went under, or they broke up, or they're not with their record label anymore, or some major amount of bullshit had happened. What I'm trying to get across, what point I'm trying to get across is the sound of this album. Granted, I'm going to say my opinion that this album was better than their last, and their last album was named Allegiance, and their new one is called Instinct. Should have mentioned that before, but that doesn't matter because the way I felt that this album was cleaner, if you want to say that, it had a cleaner sound. It sounded more, it sounds more promising, but also a lot of the songs, I listened to the whole entire record from beginning to end, not on shuffle. And from beginning to end, it felt like the whole CD was one track. Like it felt like there was no change. There was no dramatic change from song to song. There was maybe one or two songs that I heard that had a really cool acoustic beginning, and then it just straight went back into the hardcore metalcore or grindcore or deathcore sound. The other thing is like I had mentioned before, the wait. The wait was so long. People were like, "This album's never gonna come out." It's kind of like the way people are feeling about the Dr. Dre's Detox album. Um, Again, I also listen to hip hop and stuff like that, certain hip hop. Um, but like now, it's been 10 plus years since Dr. Dre announced he was gonna make the Detox album, and it's been mentioned in many of Eminem's at the end of Eminem songs that feature Dr. Dre, and they're still promising it to you. We finally, after about 10 years, a decade, a decade has passed since his last album released, Chronic 2001, and people are still just waiting and waiting. Two singles, from what I heard, have already been dropped as confirmed to be on the Detox record. I Need a Doctor and Kush. Um, that's about it. That's all we know. That's the little glimpse that we get to see what this album's gonna sound like. After about 10 years, I hope to God that it's not gonna be some 10-track bullshit or 20-track bullshit. What I would like to see is some sort of, now this is just from my perspective, from the consumer. Um, but what I would like to see is something of the sort of make it one record, but make it that not similar to the way Eminem was going to do it with Relapse, where it was going to be Relapse and Relapse 2, but in a way of doing like a double CD combo where it's on one disc it's like 20 tracks, and on the next disc it's 15, another 15 or 20 tracks, because you would think that 10 plus years would give you enough time to, well, it depends on how your life went in the last 10 years. That also depends on it too. But what I'm trying to say is you would think that that amount of time would give you enough writing material to write songs if you're that form of an artist. Just just a perspective from the consumer, from me. I'm just one guy who talks about music a lot. Um, the other band. Now, going back to the original thing of As Blood Runs Black. I like the band. I don't hate them. I don't dislike them. They're a great band, don't get me wrong. But 5 years and coming out with a record that only has 11 tracks. Granted, and almost every single one of the tracks sounds the same except for the one or two that I had mentioned that sounded like they had some sort of acoustic guitar at the beginning. Um, this is based off of one full listen from beginning to end, and it sounded like it was a void, but I'm not gonna. It wasn't horrible. It had the typical sound that's been showing up lately in a lot of these bands similar to this. If you don't know of the band, you probably wouldn't be watching this. But if you know of the band, um, and you were anticipating the record, I want to know in the comments how much you liked it compared to their Allegiance record. Um, Now we're gonna switch gears and we're gonna go to a band that I like. I recently have given this band so much more respect than in previous years, and it's Rise Against. Um, Rise Against is more of a, I wouldn't know what to call their sound because of anything. Their sound is, I guess you would say, poppy punkish, but um, I don't want to say that, you know, and they're American, they're an American band. That's obvious because Endgame is basically about, from what I can tell so far, it's about a lot of the things that are wrong with our country as of now, and that's all. They're really political. I can say that. Um, but for this record, if you're a fan of the band and you like the way that they sound, I say go pick it up. I say go get it or download it or buy it, buying it through iTunes or whatever. But yeah, they're pretty much they're a modern day punk band. They're not 80s punk or 70s punk or any of that. They're a modern day punk band, not kind of similar to what I guess you would say Green Day was back in the day or some shit like that, or Offspring, shit like that. They're that kind of punky, poppy sound. What I liked about this record is that each track, from what I've heard, each track, um, there's 12 tracks, but each track had something different. The vocals were a little same, but the message in each different song was something different, and it's a fun record to listen to because it changes so dramatically, both emotionally and I want to say physically in the way that the music sounds. Um, Intros to songs are different almost each and every time. Some start with uh, a crazy electric guitar, or some start with drums, and it's just a really, I find it to be a really good album. Um, Granted, I'm a huge metal fan. Don't get me wrong. I love metal. I love As Blood Runs Black. But 5 years, 5 years is a little long for us to wait for you to come out with a record. And most of the consumers of that band are gonna think that that band is gonna that they just fell off the face of the earth. Now, in future videos, I will be talking about how bands have changed their sound from beginning to now, from their first record to their now record. Um, couple of the bands that I want to look at are like Atreyu, Korn, Disturbed, a couple of the mainstream, and then I'm gonna try and look at other bands that are not so mainstream. And that's gonna take a little bit of research for the way they could be older, they could be newer, they could be of any decade. But for now, the next episode or the next video is going to be something about how bands can either keep their sound or dramatically change their sound for the better or worse. And that's going to be something that's going to be another discussion. But like I said, Rise Against new album, Endgame, released I think today, yesterday or today, was is a fun album to listen to. It is a good record. It from beginning to end, it has promising, promising songs. Um, Granted, they can be a little whiny at times. I will admit that they can be a very whiny band when it comes to politics or when it comes to things that they don't like, which is mostly politics because they're a very political band. Um, but other than that, it's bearable. It passes. It's on a good level of music. Um, it's a good everyday listening type of band and type of album. Um, if you want something different than just the extreme screaming and grinding on a guitar or fast drums, you listen to this band because it'll give you a perspective into what they feel isn't right. Going back to His Blood Runs Black, I've said what I've had to say about them. The record was an on a scale. I liked it, but I didn't hate it. It just bothered me that that record sounded the same all the way through, and most other metal bands that I listen to can change their sound with the same technique going through each track. Um, but that's my opinion. That's the end of this. And if you want to discuss anything, anything about the bands I talked about now, about the two records that I talked about, your opinion on what you feel about them, if you're a fan of the music, if you're not a fan of the music, I don't care. Hateful comments, douchey comments will be blocked, and you will be blocked. If you're being a douchey dickwad. But again, leave your comments underneath if you liked, if you like either band's albums, or if you dislike them. Thank you, and thanks for watching. If you want to see more of these, you know what button to hit above, over here. It'll be around this area. It'll be yellow or gray, and orange or gray, whatever. I'm fucking colorblind. Deal with it. But yeah, subscribe and do that kind of thing, and we'll be getting more videos out. Thanks.